It's 8:38 now. The mother of a leading cladding campaigner who took her own life is calling on the government to change the law about who qualifies for financial help. Amanda Walker died earlier this year, and although the government has made £5 billion available to remove flammable cladding, it doesn't cover the costs of other fire safety issues.
As thousands of tower blocks are inspected in the wake of the Grenfell fire, numerous other defects are being discovered, including in Amanda's flat that her parents have now inherited. The law currently excludes more than 1 million leasehold flat owners from help with those costs. Amanda's mother, Glenda, spoke to the BBC's Phil Hendry about the toll the fight took on her daughter.
I think it had taken over her life, really. She lost this very nice partner she had. And he was magnificent, but I think in the end he just couldn't cope anymore with her. She was broken-hearted, there's no question about that. That may even have, I think, added to her anger, her frustration. I'm different from Anne. She felt despair, she felt anxiety. She wanted to know, she wanted justice. I think she just lost faith in the government completely.
Well, the new Labour government says it will explore all options to end what it calls the nightmare of living in unsafe buildings. Let's speak to Jennifer Frame, who is from End Our Cladding Scandal. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
Just explain the situation at the moment then, because we've mentioned this £5 billion available to, to avoid to remove the flammable cladding, But what does it exclude?
Well, it's very complicated, and that's part of the problem. There's actually a commitment to spend 9.2 billion, but the government intends to recover about 4 billion from other parties, which is where the 5 billion figure comes from. And initially, it focused on developing schemes that were grant-funded government schemes to fund cladding removal. First of all, of the type that was on Grenfell, that's called ACM cladding. It's had tests which show it's particularly aggressive in terms of the speed of fire spread. And then those funds extended to other types of cladding. What none of them do, other than if you happen to be lucky enough to have one of the top 50 developers who signed up to the developer remediation scheme, if you happen to be one of those buildings, then you can also get internal fire safety defects resolved as well, because it's also recognised that they can be life critical. That includes things like compartmentation between flats to stop it spreading between units very quickly, things like cavity barriers, things like fire doors, and it's very commonplace for pretty much every building that's having cladding work also then needs a second round of internal work. And actually there's no funding for anybody for that, but if you are classed as a qualifying leaseholder, just to make it a little bit more complicated, then you have protection up to £10,000 for outside of London, but you might have to pay up to £15,000 if you're inside London. Now, in Amanda's case, because her building had enfranchised, and that meant that leaseholders had purchased the freehold amongst them, Amanda actually hadn't, but other people in her building had. Because she was enfranchised, she didn't count as a qualifying leaseholder, so she didn't even have that cap on her costs. So it wasn't even capped at £15,000, it could have been uncapped. And what that then means is that people have absolute impossibility of being able to sell the property. So no matter if they're needing to move for work, needing to move for health reasons, they've had a relationship breakdown, all these reasons why somebody might need to move on with their life, they're completely trapped and often having to sell to cash buyers.
I mean, it's an unbelievably a nightmarish situation that you've described there. I mean,
yes.
What about you, Jennifer? I mean, are you still in an unsafe building?
Well, my situation is a little bit different in that my building burnt down 5 years ago. So my building was destroyed completely by a fire 2 years after Grenfell. And my building was a 4-storey building. And it was not cladding that was at fault. It was all other kinds of defects. So that's why I often campaign on this issue of non-cladding defects, and also low-rise buildings, which are also excluded from any support at all, no matter if they have life-critical risks in them. So they're another group of people who are unprotected. So, the exclusions have been carved out in order to keep that cost down. That pressure is being put just on the people that are absolutely not to blame for this problem. I mean, we've all seen from the Grenfell inquiry the huge long list of organisations and bodies that were responsible, from not just cladding manufacturers. It wasn't just a cladding issue. Their fire doors were also faulty in Grenfell. Their automatic opening vents to get rid of smoke were also faulty. The cavity barriers were also missing. We saw that the architects were blamed, the government for not reviewing their building safety regulations, even though they knew they were faulty, even though they'd commissioned tests which showed that there was problems. So the range of people to blame is a very long one. But the people that are not on that at all are residents and leaseholders, and yet they're the ones still having to pick up, the price and pay the price.
Well, the Conservative government brought in the Building Safety Act in 2022, which Michael Gove said would bring this scandal to an end. The current Labour government has told us that that they are taking a new remediation acceleration plan to set clear timelines and firm deadlines to put an end to the delays and ensure rogue freeholders are held to account. They also say that the new measures will get buildings fixed quicker and put the end in sight for affected residents. They say we will not hesitate to actively pursue the owners of buildings who refuse to act. Do you feel like you are getting somewhere, that things are changing in the right direction?
Well, it's good that they've acknowledged that there's a problem with the pace of the scheme. Excuse me. But I think what they're really doing is just speeding up the existing processes a little bit, putting a little bit of extra pressure on building owners to move a bit faster. Actually, sometimes that can have a very detrimental impact on leaseholders and residents. We've got several buildings where just before Christmas, they've had a waking watch imposed on the building, which is a fire patrol 24/7. And it comes at a huge cost. And that often falls on the leaseholders to be paid immediately. And we've got people just in the last couple of days, just before Christmas, being told that they're going to have that cost to pay. So sometimes enforcement, while it might have a long-term benefit of hurrying up the building owner, can have a detrimental impact on the people that we really want to see supported. So there needs to be those protective measures in place. That financial support for the people that are impacted. But I think as well, we'd really like to see them take a really much more comprehensive approach to this. So in opposition, the Labour Party promised, their vision was a building works agency where there would be one sort of organisation. Instead of 7 different funding schemes, there would be one organisation finding buildings, prioritising buildings, fixing buildings, then recovering costs later. And we'd really like them to take a more hands-on approach like that, because it's not just about, the speed isn't just about the lack of resource that's available. There's also a lot of disputes going on. So there's a lot of times where the building owner and the developer hire their own engineer to do a different survey. They have different results. Then they argue about which is correct. And that's, taking up precious resource by doing it twice, sometimes peer reviewing it. And then, leaving people in limbo for 6 months, a year, 2 years while these disputes are worked out. So we'd really like to see those decisions taken out of the hands of the people that, put us here in the first place, put us in this situation, the industry actors, and see somebody from a government perspective take control of the whole situation and really sort of take a comprehensive approach to the problem.
Jennifer, thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Jennifer Frame from End Our Cladding Scandal. And if you're suffering distress or despair and need support, including urgent support, a list of organisations that can help is available at bbc.co.uk/action line, or you can call for free to hear recorded information on 0800 066 066. It's 8:46 now.